Australia's property market grew 6% last year. But in some suburbs, beachfront Gold Coast, inner Melbourne, lifestyle towns everyone is rushing toward, prices actually dropped. Some fell by $50,000. That is not a typo. While the rest of the country celebrated gains, these places went backwards. There is a blacklist that professional investors use to avoid these places. 15 suburbs in total. One of them now costs more than Sydney, and that is exactly why it is on the list. If you are trying to figure out where your money should actually go in Australian property, stick around. I'm going to show you the exact criteria that separates wealth-building suburbs from wealth-destroying ones. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to spot these traps before they cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Gold Coast's impossible price tag. The Gold Coast's median unit price now exceeds Sydney's for the first time in Australian history. Let that sink in for a moment. A holiday apartment in Surfers Paradise costs more than the same apartment in Australia's most expensive city. We are talking $900,000 for a Gold Coast unit versus $794,000 in Sydney. But here's what the headlines do not tell you. Local incomes have not moved. The buyers are not locals, they are interstate speculators betting everything on the 2032 Olympics. When that money stops flowing, the math completely breaks down. There is no local demand strong enough to catch the fall, and the entire market is built on a foundation of expectation rather than fundamentals. Why Surfers Paradise is ground zero. Surfers Paradise sits at the center of this speculation trap, and it is the first location on our blacklist. The fundamentals simply do not exist to justify current prices. Rental yields are compressed, unit oversupply is staggering, and the entire pricing structure depends on continued interstate enthusiasm. The problem with sentiment-driven markets is simple. Sentiment changes. One interest rate hike, one economic wobble, one shift in Olympic expectations, and the buyers disappear overnight. When that happens, there is nothing underneath to support these prices. The same factors that drove prices up will drive them down even faster. The 5 suburbs that followed surfers down, Southport, Benoa, Hope Island, Mermaid Beach, and Broad Beach, have all been pulled into the same orbit. These 6 Gold Coast suburbs share identical risk profiles. Prices are driven by interstate money, local demand is weak, and each suburb has massive exposure to a single future event that is still 8 years away. 8 years is a long time for sentiment to shift. Interest rates could rise multiple times. The economy could slow dramatically. International tourism patterns could change permanently. Any of these factors could reverse the flow of money that is currently propping up these markets. Once that reversal starts, it feeds on itself. Melbourne's $6 billion ghost town. The Gold Coast is expensive speculation, but there is a market where properties are actually sitting empty, thousands of them, and the government fast-tracked the problem. That market is Melbourne, and what is happening there is a preview of what is coming to every oversupplied market in Australia. 8,000 completed apartments sit unsold across Melbourne right now. That is 17% of everything built between 2020 to 2024. A staggering failure rate that nobody wants to talk about. The collective value is $4 to $6 billion of inventory that nobody wants. And here is the terrifying part. The supply keeps coming regardless. 25,000 more apartments are in the pipeline for Docklands and Fisherman's Bend alone, and developers cannot stop now even if they wanted to. The Docklands disaster explained. Docklands has become Melbourne's cautionary tale. A preview of what happens when oversupply meets investor exodus. Inner Melbourne prices dropped $50,000 last year, while the national market grew 6%. That is not underperformance. That is going backwards while everyone else moves forward, and there is no sign of recovery. But the price drop is not even the worst part. Docklands' annual strata fees run $12,000 to $15,000, the highest in Melbourne. These fees consume up to 2.5% of rental income in an already low-yield market. You are paying premium fees on a depreciating asset, and both problems compound year after year. This is the textbook definition of a wealth-destroying investment. South Melbourne and the investor exodus. South Melbourne tells the same story with an extra chapter that should worry everyone. 25,000 investment properties were sold by Victorian investors in 2025 alone, the highest annual number since 2019. The drivers are clear: land tax increases, tenancy regulation changes, and yields that simply do not work anymore. The replacement buyers are first home owner occupiers, not investors. That means rental supply is shrinking precisely as apartment supply explodes. It is a pincer movement where both forces push prices down simultaneously. Expected time to clear the existing inventory is 5 to 7 years at normal transaction rates. That's half a decade of stagnation before the market even reaches equilibrium. Sydney's CBD fringe is next. Melbourne's collapse isn't unique. The same mechanism is active in Sydney's CBD fringe right now. Zetland, Olympic Park, and Haymarket are the next Docklands, with endless high-rise approvals, no scarcity, and zero pricing power. These are the 7th through 9th locations on our blacklist. 15,000 to 20,000 apartment approvals are currently in process across Sydney's central business district fringe. Unlike established suburbs with heritage protection, these areas face perpetual new supply that never stops coming. The proximity to the central business district that makes them attractive for development is exactly what makes them fail as investments. Developers see opportunity everywhere, and the competition never ends. Your building will always have a newer, shinier competitor next door. The affordability trap nobody talks about. So oversupply kills expensive apartments. But surely affordable outer suburbs, family-friendly, government-supported, first home buyer magnets are safe? Actually, those are the worst traps of all. This is the counterintuitive twist that catches the most people. Because affordable in Australian property almost always means unlimited supply. These suburbs are cheap because developers can build unlimited houses on former farmland with minimal restrictions. The moment you buy, 15,000 identical homes enter the queue behind you. Your property is not scarce, it is one of thousands, with thousands more coming. That affordable price tag is actually a warning sign. Victoria's Northern Growth Corridor gamble. Beveridge and Wallan sit at the heart of Melbourne's Northern Growth Corridor, and they represent our 10th blacklisted location. The government has approved 15,000 new homes across this region. That sounds like growth and opportunity, but for property values, it is the exact opposite. When supply is unlimited, individual properties simply cannot appreciate. Construction delays, poor build quality, and developer insolvencies are common throughout these corridors. These areas are marketed aggressively to first-time buyers with house and land packages that look attractive but trap owners in stagnant assets for a decade or more. The marketing is slick, but the fundamentals are broken. Perth's 50,000 home pipeline is concentrated in the Wanneroo corridor, including Banksia Grove. That is not a housing development. That is a small city being built from scratch, and every single dwelling competes with yours for buyers and renters. Smart investors are already taking profits and leaving these markets. They understand that a low entry price reflects limited scarcity, not good value. New entrants will hold stagnant assets while the supply tsunami continues year after year after year. The people selling know something. The people buying have not figured out yet. Adelaide and Brisbane's unlimited land problem. The pattern repeats across every major Australian city, and that is what makes this a systemic problem. Roseworthy and Two Wells in South Australia are part of a master plan for 61,000 homes. Alexandra Hills and Kapalaba in Queensland's Redland City have 8,000 homes approved and ready to build. The entry prices look attractive because developers can build forever on cheap agricultural land that stretches to the horizon. That is a warning sign disguised as affordability. You're buying into a market where scarcity will never exist, and scarcity is the only thing that creates long-term value. When the entire economy swings, supply isn't the only killer. Some markets fail because their entire economy can swing overnight based on factors completely outside your control. Port Hedland in Western Australia is the mining town poster child for this kind of volatility. When commodity prices spike, property often surges dramatically, sometimes doubling in just a few years. When they crash, prices can drop 20 to 30%, and rents collapse with them in tandem. The high yield that attracts investors is actually a warning signal. High yield equals high risk, always and without exception. These markets only work for investors who are prepared to hold for 15 to 20 years and who can tolerate massive price swings that would destroy most investors. The tourism town trap in Cairns. Cairns tells a similar story built on different foundations but with identical results. Trinity Park, Trinity Beach, and Cairns CBD are all exposed to tourism dependency and interstate investor speculation. 60% or more of recent purchases in northern Cairns suburbs came from interstate investors chasing yields, not locals building lives. When tourism slows, as it did from 2022 to 2024, rentals weaken, vacancy rises, and prices correct rapidly. Japanese investor exodus has left older CBD buildings with unsustainable body corporate fees, and forced sales are increasing across the region. The numbers that looked attractive on paper do not survive contact with reality. Even government towns aren't safe. If you thought government jobs meant stability and a safe property investment, Canberra has a surprise for you. Unit prices dropped $15,000 last year, despite 6% growth nationwide. Even the nation's capital is not immune. Predictable oversupply from government town planning has flooded the market with new apartments, far exceeding tenant demand. The stability that makes Canberra attractive for employment also makes it slow for price appreciation. Better value exists in suburbs further out, or in other capitals with genuine scarcity, the very thing Canberra's planners have eliminated. What actually creates wealth? The reason some suburbs appreciate 15 to 25%, while these 15 suburbs stagnate, comes down to one word: scarcity. Genuine pricing power comes from established inner-ring suburbs with heritage protection, geographic constraints like water and hills, and limited rezoning capacity that prevents competition. Before buying anywhere, ask yourself one critical question: how many similar properties can be built nearby? If the answer is unlimited or thousands, you are in a trap. The properties that build wealth are the ones that cannot be replicated, the ones where supply is genuinely constrained by factors that will not change. The real cost you can't see. The investor who put $600,000 into Docklands in 2023 has watched that money stagnate, while the same amount in an undersupplied suburb appreciated $90,000 to $150,000. That is not just lost growth, it is lost opportunity, compounding for decades into the future. The gap between good decisions and bad decisions widens every single year. Interest rates could rise again in 2026. If they do, every optimistic forecast becomes invalid, and these oversupplied markets face real correction, not just stagnation. The worst may still be ahead for anyone holding property in these locations. The question is not whether these 15 places are bad bets. It is whether you can spot the next 15 before they make the blacklist.